In this video, we're going to pick up where we left off by first calculating the standard deviation of the difference scores. So we've almost completed setting up all of the quantities inside the square root symbol, but we do have a couple of more things to do. So as to recall, we had calculated the summation of the squared differences, and that value we placed at the bottom of this column here, and we had squared the sum of the difference scores, and we placed that value and we need to place that value right here. So we had summed up the difference scores. Now we need to square that. So I'm going to put that value in the cell beneath this one where we have the sum of the difference scores. So to calculate the square of that, I'm going to hit the equal sign. I'm going to click this cell right here. That's where I have my value. And I'm going to shift 6. I'm going to raise that to the power of 2, and we have a value of 625. And one more step here is that once we square the summed difference scores, we have to divide that by the sample size, and that gives us the numerator inside this expression. So, and I'm going to put that value in the cell right beneath this one here. So I'm going to hit the equal sign. I'm just going to take that squared value in the cell above it in E11, and I'm going to hit the /, and I'm going to divide it by the sample size. I could type in the number 8, or I could just click where I have 8 in this cell, and I hit enter. So now we have a value of 78.125, and that is the numerator in our expression. Or that's the second term in the numerator. So we now have 3 terms that we can now use to calculate the standard deviation of the different scores. So I'm going to put a label in this cell, H1, and I'm just going to go S dot difference, indicating that in the cell beside it we're going to enter an equation to calculate the standard deviation of the different scores. And so I'm going to work entirely inside the square root symbol first, and I'm going to hit the equal sign. Now the first term we encounter in the numerator is the summed difference scores, which we had placed at the bottom of this column right here. So I'm just going to click that value, and I want to subtract the quantity that we had left over here at 78.125. And I'm going to hit enter. Now our value is not yet complete, because we need to take this value and divide it by the degrees of freedom. So to modify this equation, we go up to the formula bar, and what I'm going to do is right after the equal sign, I'm going to shift 9, open parenthesis, then I'm going to cursor over to the end where I close parenthesis, and I'm going to hit the / for divide by the degrees of freedom, which is n minus 1. We could type in the number 7, or we could just click the cell where we had previously calculated the degrees of freedom, and I'm just going to click that cell, and I'm going to hit enter. We're not quite finished yet, where we now have to take the square root of this value of this entire quantity. So we go back up to our cell, and we have to make one more modification to our equation up here. So we start at the very beginning, right after the equal sign, and I'm going to type in the square root command for Excel, and that's SQRT, and I'm going to shift 9, open parenthesis, and then I'm going to cursor over all the way to the end, and I'm going to shift 0 to close the parenthesis, instructing Excel to calculate the square root of everything contained inside these parentheses. And I hit the enter, and now I have a standard deviation of the different scores of 2.58775. The next equation moving down is that we want to calculate the standard error of the different scores. And that's just simply the standard deviation of the different scores divided by the square root of the sample size, which is 8. So I'm going to put that in the cell right beneath this, and I'm going to type in SE dot difference. And I'm going to put that value in here, but I need to type in the equation. So I'm going to start by hitting the equal sign, and I'm going to take this value right here. Instead of retyping the value, I just click the cell. And then I'm going to divide that by the square root of the sample size, which is 8. So I'm just going to Shift 9 because I want to take care of this value inside the denominator first, and I'm going to SQRT. I'm going to Shift 9 again, and I could type in the number 8, or I could just click the cell where I had previously calculated the sample size. So I'm just going to click the cell here. I'm going to close the parenthesis for the square root, and I need to close the parentheses once again because I wanted to contain this in the denominator first, and then it'll perform the division. So I need to Shift 0, and then I hit enter. And we have, and I'm just going to highlight this here, I'm going to bold that and give that a different color. So we've now calculated the standard error of the difference scores. So this ends our part 2 of using Microsoft Excel to perform a paired samples t-test.